Hi, in this video we will do file handling in Python, and especially we will be using text files. In the later videos we'll be using CSV file as well, but right now we're just doing file handling using text files. Let's start. So for file handling, the main function that we have is your open function. Open function takes two parameters. One is the name of the file, and the second one is the name of the file with the extension. Don't forget that. And the second parameter is the mode. Right. So remember, whenever you have to open a file, you will use open function. And the first parameter is the name of the file with extension, and the second parameter is the mode. That will tell the compiler in which mode you want to open your file, or what's your intention. Do you want to write into it, or do you want to read from it? Do you want to create a new file and then write into it, or do you want to write into an existing file? So see, the W mode is used to create a new file and write into it. And then we have append mode. That append mode is used to add some data to an existing file. Then we have read mode. Read mode is used to read from the file. Right. So as you know, why we do file handling, because when we run a code, whatever the functionality that the program performed is lost as soon as the program terminates. We want to save the calculations or whatever we have done during the execution of the program. We want to save that in a file. We want to save the output in a file, and for that purpose we use file handling. And obviously, if we have to write into the file, we will use the write mode, and we have to read from the file, we will use the read mode. Okay, so when you will run this code, this first line would create a file on your working directory. Remember, we have two types of paths. One is relative path. So this path that we are using is called relative path. Why? Because it will create a new file inside the working directory. If you want to use the absolute path, so the absolute path would be something like this. So you're creating a file on D drive inside a folder, let's say, and then inside that folder you have that file. So that's called absolute path. We are using relative path. So when we will run this code, which we have done, it has created a new file named first.txt on a working directory. We can check it. We can go back to the working directory. Here it is. As you can see, today's date and time, current date and time, and the file is created. Now, what we will do, we will write into that file. How can we write it? First of all, when this open function runs, it creates the file and returns the reference of that file. So we can store that reference in a variable. We also call this an object. So this file is an object that is storing the reference of this file. You can name it anything. You can call it F, or you can call it file first, whatever you like. I think that's more appropriate. Right. So now, once we have created a file, next step is to write into that file. And to write into the file, we use write function. We will say file.write. We will write whatever we want inside that function arguments. Okay, so when you will run this code, it will write hello to the file. What we need to do, we need to close the file after we have done whatever we wanted to do. So now when you will run this code, it will create a file and it will write the string hello to the file. We can check it, we can go back to the working directory, we can open the file and see hello is there. Now what we want to read from the file as well and display the output on output window rather than opening the file from the working directory. So for this purpose, we have to open that file again. The name of the file is first.txt, and this time we want to open it. You can use single speech mark or double speech mark, it doesn't make any difference. So you can use read mode now, right? Because we want to open it in read mode. We want to read data from that file. Again, store the reference in file object, and now we can say file.read. Run this function and it will return the contents of the file. We can store the contents in this variable data. Now what we can do, we can print data. When you will run this code, you will see it will output hello, because we created the file and we wrote the string hello in it, and then we open the file again in read mode and printed, read the contents of the file and printed it. But one thing that you notice, each time you run this file, it displays just one hello. Why? Because each time this line is executed, it creates a new file named first.txt. If the file already exists, it overwrites that file. If the file doesn't exist, it creates a new file. So in every case, it is creating a new file, and if the file already exists, it is overwriting it. When you overwrite a file, it means its contents are lost. So that's why each time you run this file, you see just one hello. What we can do, we can change this mode now. We know that file already exists. What will do, we will run this code now, and we will see it will display two hellos. We can check it. Let's do it, and we have two hellos. Right. Another thing that we can do, we can, after writing each hello, we want a cursor to go to next line. How can we do that? We can simply use file.write again, and we can write next line character. So when this code will run again, you will see that it will write hello third time in that file on that first row, but the cursor would be moved to next line. Let's run it and see. See, as I told you, it is still wrote the hello on the same line. But when you will run it again, the next hello would be written on next line. Why? Because after writing the previous one, the cursor was moved to next line. Let's check it out, and you can see in our output we have three hellos on one line and one hello on next line. Now whenever you will run this file again, it will be writing next hello on next line because of that \n character, next line character. So that's basic file handling using text file. We can do one more thing. Okay, so usually the data that we write into a file is some valuable data. It's not just dummy string like what we're doing right now. So we can have data something like this. Let's say our data is, let's call our data D, and D equal name and let's name it Sam. Okay, so we can ask user to enter the name. We can make it more interesting. Let's do that actually. So we can write an input function. We can ask user to enter his or her name. So no, we won't call it D. We can say that's a name. Now, next thing that we will do, let's copy this line. Oh, sorry. There you go. This time we're saying, please enter your marks. Now, let's change the variable name to marks. Right. So now, we're getting the input from the user, and then we're saying, we're creating a concatenated list that contains this name and marks. So let's concatenate a string. So name is a variable, then we're adding an empty space character, and then we're adding the marks. Now we have a new string now, so rather than writing hello, we can simply say D. Right, so now let's run this code now and see what happens. So it is asking us to enter the name. I will say please enter your mark. I will say, let's give myself better mark, 100%. There you go. So now we have a previous content and then the new content as well, which are the marks and the name. Let's create a new file now. Okay, so let's override the existing file. We want to have some valuable data. So let's change the mode again into W mode, run this code again. It is asking us to enter name. We will enter name, and then I would say marks, let's say 100. There you go. So what we can do now, we can enter more data because the file exists. We don't want to override it again. We will change the mode again. We will run this code again, and this time around the name is Sam. Marks are 99. Now you can see we have two entries into our file. Right, so now that's our write function. Okay, we have amended a write function. Write function. And now we can play with your read function as well. So far we're using a read function. What read function does, it reads the entire file and returns it, which we are storing in data, and then we're printing data. Another thing that we can do, we can also use read line. As you can see, it is recommending us two functions. One is read line and another one is read lines. What read line would do, it will just read one line, right? And if you will write read line again on next line, it will write the second line as well. So each time you write read line, each time you write read line, it reads one line. So we can check it out. There you go. We will enter another name. Let's say this time we're saying Adam, and the marks are again 100. See, we're getting just one line, right? So why is just printing see, our first entry was Usher, second was Sam, and it is printing the second entry. So see, this line returned Usher, but we didn't print it. This line returned Sam, but we printed it. So that's why you're seeing just one output. Now we can use read line and we can use read lines as well. So there's a difference between read line and read lines. So read lines reads all the lines of the file, right? But they would be separate line. Why are we doing that? I will show you in a second. So now we have read the file using readLine function. Now what we can do, we can get access to each one of the values on one row separately. What I mean, I will show you in a second. So we will say data 1 or new data equals data dot. So actually, instead of doing that, we will read your data. So we have read all the lines separately. We can use a for loop and we can iterate through each line one at a time. So we can say for data in data, and I'm sure you're familiar with for loop. So, and especially this type of for loop, we will say data dot split. When this line will run, it will split that line into list of words. And then if you will print it, you will see each line separately. Okay, but as a list. So let's run it and see. You will enter a new name, and new name I'm saying is Kathy. We will run the marks as well. Let's give her 100 marks as well. Now you can see the output is displayed as a list. Why are we doing that? We can access each element separately. Let's say here I have entered my spellings wrong, so I can correct it if I want. How can I do that? Let's say if I have to just access the names, I can simply say data1 square brackets. If I want to access the names, the index of the name is 0, so I will write 0. If I have to access the marks, I will write the index of the mark, which is 1. Let's run your code now and see what happens. We will enter the name and the marks again for a new person. Let's say this time we're saying John. And the marks are again 100. There you go. So this time around, we're just getting the names. We're not getting the marks. So that's the advantage of splitting our line into multiple words, right? Multiple values. So in a file, the data that we will enter would contain different types of data. We might have names, marks, first name, last name, date of birth, and things like that. So what we can do, we can split them using the split function, and then we can access them individually using the for loop, right? Okay, so that's your file handling in Python using the text file. In the next video, we will do file handling using CSV files and dictionaries. So if you like my channel, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section. Until next time, see ya. Bye.